Guten Abend, Openmind-Trompete-Zuschauer. Es gibt ein sehr geiles Format von dem YouTube-Kanal Animated, wo immer so Drogentrips animiert werden. Und wir schauen jetzt da 2 davon an und sagen zwischendurch mal sowas wie, ha, krass. Also das ist totally worth it, dass ihr dieses Video anschaut und nicht das Originale, weil das haha krass dazwischen, das ist sehr relevant. Okay, warte, schauen wir uns das mal an.
I tore off my shirt, crawled into the kitchen, and started vomiting. But I remember thinking, well, this is a lot more than I bargained for. My name is Hamilton Morris. I'm the creator and director of Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, and this is the time that I took Pharmawaska.
Ich feiere den Typ einfach.
First encountered ayahuasca when I was a freshman in college. I was friends with somebody who was also very interested in psychedelics, and I went into his dorm room and he was making a purple brew on the stove in his dorm. I asked him what it was and he said it was this Amazonian brew. If you drank it, you would be able to enter this realm of fantasies where you could have sex with aliens. It sounded a little bit alarming, so I thought, okay, I'm gonna table this and come back to it at a later date. I was a teenager. I thought that I knew everything, and I thought, well, these Amazonian shamans, they're doing it all wrong. This is a combination of an enzyme inhibitor and DMT. Logically, you should take the enzyme inhibitor first and then take the DMT later. But what I didn't understand was the dosage, something that's very, very difficult to do when you're working with plants. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use synthetic DMT freebase and a pharmaceutical MAOI. Just to be extra safe, I'm going to divide the dose in half. I took the enzyme inhibitor and then took the capsule of synthetic DMT freebase. I was sitting with my friend in his car, nothing was happening. And then I started to feel a little bit of something happening. Okay, I'm gonna get out of the car and I'm gonna go for a walk. We were on the shore. I go to the shore and I pick up a stone and start examining it. I realized, oh wow, it's actually made up of rapidly moving mosaic tiles. Instead of interpreting this as a hallucination, it felt very real to me. I thought, wow, this is a geological phenomenon that I have never observed previously. Are all stones like this? And then I saw something glimmering in the distance. So I walked into the water, reached into the glimmering item, pulled it out, and it was a harmonica. Wow, a gift.
No way.
From Neptune. He wants me to play him a song. And I put the harmonica to my lips, and this horrendously disgusting, rusty brine poured into my mouth. And I started gagging, thinking, Neptune, how could you? This is terrible. I look up at my friend.
No way.
He has transformed into the Japanese demon of folklore, Oni. And this is typically not what a psychedelic is like. Usually somebody takes a psychedelic with their friends, they look at nature, maybe a little bit of breathing, maybe a little bit of twinkling, maybe a little bit of this or that, but not overt, true hallucinations. That does not typically occur. So I looked at my friend and he was a demon and he was saying,
you gotta get back in the car.
We get in the car, he's driving, thankfully. There's a phenomenon called speaking in tongues. I wasn't speaking in tongues, I was screaming in tongues. And outside the car, it was like a void. It was a milky white expanse of nothingness. And I was screaming and having these hallucinations. As it turned out, this was the highest dose of DMT that I have ever consumed, and I don't think, ever consume this much again. Eventually, we arrive at a house. It was a friend's house that I'd never been to before. He gets out of the car and he says, come inside, and he shuts the door and he leaves me alone. And one of the things that psychedelics do is they give every interaction this kind of metaphorical importance. So yeah. My friend leaves me alone in the car, and I think, well, he's gone, and I'm alone. And that's the nature of life. I can't stand. So I sort of...
Er kann echt gut so Trips raus. Also er ist echt gut darin, Trip-Stories zu erzählen.
Crumble out of the car onto my hands and knees. Each time I lift my hand and touch it back to the ground, my fingers are sprouting roots that are fusing with the soil around me. Eventually, I make it into the door, and my friend is watching Seinfeld on the couch. Psychedelics also have this ability to give you a sort of macroscopic vision, almost like the cartoon Ren and Stimpy, and it's actually very disgusting. I look at this couch and I think, this couch is literally poisoning me. I felt that my lungs had ceased to oxygenate my blood. I tore off my shirt, crawled into the kitchen, and started vomiting. But I remember thinking, well, this is a lot more than I bargained for. I need some kind of help. I remember calling out to Socrates. You are the wisest of all men. Surely you have some advice in
Diese Serie, die ist so gut gemacht, ey.
This particular situation. I started to feel a sort of unwinding of very basic components of my consciousness, things you don't even think of as aspects of how you perceive reality. And I started to forget who I was, where I was. I didn't know anything about anything. Then, almost as quickly as it had started, it just ended. And I was sober, shirtless on the ground, with a small amount of vomit surrounding me. And so I stood up, and I dusted myself off, and my friend was still watching Seinfeld in the other room. And I went in, and I sat with him on the couch, and we watched a little bit of Seinfeld.
Tales from the
Wie geil ist das denn? Schau mal noch, was
Just
das aussieht.
erupted into flames. Is this happening? And I would double check. Yep, it's happening. Hey everybody, I'm Steve-O, star of the upcoming movie Jackass Forever. Yeah, dude. Now let's get into a
Was?
variety of psychedelic
Ich glaub, da hab ich sogar mal auf dem
experiences,
Trailer zu
which
dem Film
I actually am
reagiert
quite
hier.
proud of. The first time I really properly tripped, I was a junior in high school, and I had just been to my first Grateful Dead concert and took my first real powerful hit of LSD. It was after the concert, when I got back home, that I really started to notice things were going a little bit crazy. I had school the next morning, so I wanted to get to sleep. I noticed as I was trying to fall asleep that I was actually being mindful so as to not disturb the other me, which was in front of me, or the...
Okay, here we go. Hier kommen wir wieder. Der Trip ist wieder besser, muss ich
other
sagen.
me, which was behind me. And if you're having trouble following me, what I'm telling you is that there were literally 3 of me in the same bed. And I was in the middle, being careful not to disturb either of the other 2 me's. This was the most incredible experience I had ever had in my life. I remember it so fondly. It's incredible. It was so special that I really didn't mind just laying there perfectly still and being quiet. I think the other 2 fell asleep first. I don't know. I took acid hundreds of times trying to recreate that experience, and sadly, it never did happen. So if you're thinking about taking acid to try to enjoy being 3 people at the same time, let me assure you, it can only happen once, and it was intense. Not as intense as the bag of ketamine I got into in 2006, about the time when Jackass #2 was coming out. Ketamine is a dissociative drug. Everything just goes out the window. This ketamine was in powder form. My experience with that bag actually lasted for 2 straight days. On the first night was me laying in the bathtub. My feet were like 30 feet away. Like some Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas crap. This is embarrassing, but the thought I had was, dude, Jim Morrison doesn't have shit on me. But it was the next day when I was trying to take care of some business. I had a lawsuit going on, and all while just treating myself to this endless bag of ketamine. Out of nowhere, the entire hotel room which I was in simply began to freefall. And I couldn't fucking believe this, man. I was like, whoa! I looked up, and what I saw was, it looked like an elevator shaft through which the hotel room was falling. I mean, dude, that's just one of the types of things ketamine is good for. It's not lost on me that that might make ketamine sound attractive. But let me also tell you that there was a time during my heavy ketamine use when the idea popped into my head, what if I couldn't breathe? Imagine having the
Der
physical
Typ hat schon so viel durchgemacht, dass der überhaupt noch lebt.
experience that you can't breathe. And that idea took on a life that really upsets me to this day. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, man. Not anybody. If I'm honest, these experiences I just related to you were sort of one-offs. But when it got to the point that I was doing cocaine for days on end while inhaling nitrous oxide, to the best of my ability, I would inhale nitrous oxide to the exclusion of air. And because it's a trashy, chemically, crappy way of eroding these barriers, we open ourselves up to very low-level frequency, which I would categorize as demons. Like at one point, I was in my big swiveling office chair. This whole chair I was in just erupted into flames. I was sitting in like a throne of fire. Is this happening? And I would double check. Yup, it's happening. I thought to myself, man, I'm really killing myself with all this. You know, there's no longevity in what I'm doing. And then I remember thinking, I don't care if I die. And I leaned over to snort that line. Something about having that thought was not okay.
Okay, war es nicht off. Okay, dann war die Anzeige bei OBS falsch.
With some spiritual entity. Because as I leaned over, that swiveling chair I was in spun with the force of a mechanical bull. And the message was so clear to me. Think again. Very important that you not die. And it was like, that was an angel. And later, when I ended up in rehab and they were talking about I needed a higher power, and what am I going to pray to? Whatever spun that chair is what I pray to. It's my higher power. I think few people have had the types of experiences that I've had, but even fewer have made it out and survived and become like healthy versions of themselves. So I wouldn't really roll the dice with the odds of having my experiences and then surviving them and going on to have like a good life, because I beat some serious odds, man.
Tales from the